This is BBC Radio 4.
You're listening to The World Tonight with Roger Hearing. Now, piracy is a word you hear a lot at the moment, often in relation to the robbery of ships off Somalia, but more often referring to this.
She's up all night to the sun. I'm up all night to get some. Money on my mind, money on my mind.
Now, those songs include ones I'm sure you recognise by Rihanna and Bruno Mars, and they are the subject of the most illegal downloads around the world last year, 5 million each, apparently. Well, it's something the record companies are, as you might imagine, desperate to prevent or at least control. But piracy seems just to elude their grasp. However, there are, it seems, ways in which piracy can be useful. Musicmetric collects and analyses data for the entertainment industry, and its chairman is Jeremy Silver. So, is it true that piracy is not always a bad thing?
Fundamentally, it's undesirable, and no one would want to see piracy if we could avoid it. But given that it is something of a reality of life, the thing that's interesting is the sort of information that comes out of tracking the level of piracy that's going on. And one can see a lot more information, actually, from pirate activity, particularly with BitTorrent downloads, which is one particular
Could you just
format.
explain what BitTorrent exactly is?
Well, so BitTorrent is a file-sharing protocol. It's a network which has no centre. It's not run by any particular individual. It depends upon all the machines that are connected to it at any one time. And it splits up files across all those different computers and then reassembles them again when people want to download them.
And the advantage of that is that it's untraceable?
The advantage of that is that the load is shared across a large number of people. So it's very efficient from a bandwidth point of view. And that was actually the reason why those sorts of protocols were invented in the first place.
So you've been monitoring this piracy. And as we know, I think Bruno Mars and Rihanna are at the top of this. They're perhaps not a great surprise in themselves. But again, would their record companies be looking at this and going, we're losing so much money? Or is it more complicated?
Well, I think the industry as a whole is pretty articulate and pretty clear that it wants to try and slow this down and reduce the quantity of piracy that's out there. And actually, it's been quite successful at doing so. I think the point really is that music companies used to be relatively simple organisations that sold, one or two formats. Now, actually, they're having to sell across a far broader range of channels, and they're engaging with fans in a very different way from the way that they used to, because they actually have a direct relationship with them. In the old days, they sold through record shops, and actually their relationships with fans were not really very direct at all. So the kind of new information, these new sources of information that are coming from things like BitTorrent are actually incredibly useful for them. And we're working with probably all the major record companies and the big players in music, not just record companies, other music companies. And they're starting to get a lot more savvy about looking at this kind of information and really understanding the way in which their fans are engaging with music and where they're doing so, how they're doing so, what time of the day, the week, and so on.
And they can make more money as a result of that. So, in effect, the piracy element to this is one that, as far as their bottom line is concerned, may not be wholly bad because they know where people are pirating.
The impact on the bottom line is still significant. But every cloud has a silver lining, and there's a lot that they can derive from this data. So I'd hesitate to say that the value they derive from it is equal to the damage that it does. But equally, since it's there's clearly data and detail to be gotten out of it.
Because I gather there was a story, I think, involving Iron Maiden in South America, where they actually looked at where they were being pirated, didn't they?
Well, a number of bands have been looking at where their pirate behaviour is happening and which cities it's happening in, and recognising the fact that although fans in those cities may not be paying for the recording, they may still be fans. And so we're starting to see promoters and agents for all sorts of different bands around the world planning their tours based on this kind of information.
Based on piracy?
Correct. The people have different places where they're putting different focus, but from the point of view of the artist, in the end, what they want to do is to understand as broadly as possible where their fans are, what their fans are doing, and what they enjoy. And if they can't make money out of recordings, they'll make money out of live performance. And if they can't make money out of that, they'll make money out of branded beer and T-shirts.
Jeremy Silver there of Musicmetric.